This all happened before COVID-19 hit the world. I think it was in 2016, perhaps? I started working at the arcade some years before it all happened. I've had run-ins with the manager and all that. When I got hired, however, the manager made us all, as new employees at the arcade, memorize some specific rules. These were unusual considering we were working at an arcade with things like Pac-Man, Frogger, Donkey Kong. You get the idea. Here are the rules of working at the arcade. Know all of the events happened in the same arcade. Rule number 1. If a new arcade game shows up by either the name of No Heart, No Soul, or with .exe at the end of the title, do not play it, or let any patron play it at all costs. This was the one rule that I almost broke. When I had to memorize the rules, my first thought was, that's the most ridiculous set of rules I have ever seen. After what's been going on, how could I not think they were serious? Originally, rule number 1 just had with .exe at the end of the title, but the part about No Heart, No Soul was added after the deaths of a 10-year-old non-binary kid named Gabriel Mayers and a 14-year-old young woman named Natalie Smallish happened as a result of playing the game. According to the account of the manager, a former employee named Thomas Ferrier allowed the game to be played, and the kids played the game. It displayed a creepy message. It added a creepy-ass character with the player's name, which was uncanny since arcade games shouldn't have the player's name already if it wasn't entered. And the avatars of the kids had both talked to a character that looked like a mix of a female pirate and a biker punk. Then they had to complete a strange, difficult tasks. They couldn't complete them, resulting in the screen showing a message saying, "Game over. May the next victim play." Both Gabriel and Natalie went pale and catatonic after that, as if the game had stolen their souls. Another former employee named Marky Harrison recounted that the game had shown up in another arcade under a different name. Now I'm going to tell you about when I almost broke the rule. No, this did not involve No Heart, No Soul. The arcade had just opened up for business with Galaga, Miss Pac-Man, a vehicle arcade of Batman, a dance machine, you name it. I was cleaning up before work when I noticed a new arcade game just got plugged in. It was titled Donkey Kong.exe. At first I shrugged it off, thinking it was a bootleg Donkey Kong arcade. But the rules. I snapped out of it and I reviewed the rules. I read and reread rule number 1, thinking it was ridiculous. I went and let the arcade open, ready for the patrons to play. The kids immediately noticed the new Donkey Kong, and they all gathered around it out of sheer interest, almost as if they just became zealots for a deity of sorts. "Mr. Crab," one of the kids asked me, "can I play this?" They were pointing to the Donkey Kong.exe. I was about to let her play it when the manager showed up out of nowhere. He came to me so fast, I swear he came out of the ground. "Rule number 1, Danforth. But I can't disappoint these kids." As if I'd allowed the monster to do its thing. "Whatever you do, do not let the arcade under any circumstances be played by anyone, including yourself. It does not succeed in finding another victim in 6 months, and I will not let it happen again." Later, after the arcade closed, the game was unplugged, hauled off, and gone. No child played the game that day. Rule number 2. If no person comes out of the laser tag arena after 30 minutes after they enter, notify the manager immediately. After my run-in with the manager after nearly letting the girl play the game, how could I not want to follow the rules? This happened about a month after I saw Donkey Kong.exe. As a general rule, we have to observe the time the next group of playing laser tag goes in. We also have the employees keeping watch on the laser tag in case of Rule 2. Normally, a period of laser tag lasts 20 minutes, so we're usually good on that. I had the shift that day, and I watched the people go in, so I wrote down the time they went in. I know. We get bored on these kinds of things, but how can we not be bored when we just have to watch the entrance to the laser tag arena? The time was 2:37 p.m. when that group went in. I watched the entrance, glancing at my watch to make sure laser tag lasted 20 minutes. And no longer. My coworker Miles ghosted up to me as she always has. Danforth, how you doing? Miles, don't you dare sneak up on me like that. I need to make sure laser tag goes smoothly. Oh? That's what you have to do today? Okay. She went back to her janitorial duties, but then I glanced at my watch. 3:05. I dashed straight to the manager's office, after having noticed that nobody came out of the laser tag arena. After my run-in with rule number 1, how could I not? I burst the door open, and I said in a volume that was almost like shouting. Rule number 2, time was 2:37, 12 people inside. With this, the manager got up from his chair so fast I thought he was about to run for his life. Shit. Move aside, I knew this was going to happen again. I knew it. He grabbed a screwdriver and a wrench from his desk drawer, rushed straight to the laser tag arena. He opened the circuit breaker inside and did some things that would require the skills of a mechanic. After about 5 minutes, I saw the 12 people I saw enter the laser tag exit. No harm was done. Later that day, I asked the manager about what happened that prompted him to make this rule. It turns out some residents of the small town had gone missing after sometimes going into laser tag. He showed me the missing posters, and even showed me some paperwork with notes by previous employees. About the times that they went in, they found that the 30-minute mark passed, and then noticed the batch of participants didn't come out. I realized that what he did was the type of procedure that stopped the monster within the laser tag game. He discovered it in some sort of manual. I realized from his reaction that notifying him of Rule 2 that the rules weren't there out of silliness. They were there to protect us all. Rule number 3. If a blonde woman in a red dress asks for a prize, under no circumstances should you give any of them to her. This happened to me for the first time about a whole month, 5 weeks into the job. No more, no less. I was given the shift on the prize counter that day. Note to you guys, we change jobs weekly just to make sure everyone does what we need to do to protect us all. I was working the prize counter. There were interesting things like the toy balls and the Nerf guns you could find, but there were also plushed animals. Luckily, the woman with the red dress can take no for an answer, making her one of the least dangerous things on the job at this arcade. I got about 7 tickets from this kid that asked for that unicorn, and I gave him one. But in the line was a blonde woman in a red dress, right behind the kid who wanted the unicorn. She looked like her hair was really bleached white. Her dress was like a red-colored version of Morticia's black dress in that TV show. Her figure just looked awfully attractive and creepy. She came up to me and asked, "May I have one of the plastic pirate swords?" And she offered about 5 tickets, exactly the price of the fake weapon. I would have offered it to her, but the thing I found out about the tickets was that there were no numbers on them like they normally do. I said no. She just smiled and walked out of the arcade. I went to the manager to find out more about this rule. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? Danforth, are you going to tell me you broke a rule? No. I just want to find out more about rule number 3. And with that, he gave me a stack of papers. When the arcade closed for the night, I read through them, the headlines jumping off the pages. Family murdered in home. Article from 1985. That article's words read something about one of the guys working at the local arcade and offering a prize to a woman in a red dress the day before the family was murdered. Engaged couple killed. Article from 1987. The wife was working at an arcade when she offered a prize to a woman in a red dress right before the night they were killed. I could see some handwriting, but it was hard to read. It read, "It's the same lady." Several more articles read about having offered a prize to a blonde woman in a red dress right before the deaths of them and their families. When I got to the last page, there was better handwriting. I'd better make a rule for this to avoid any more deaths. Rule number 4. If there is a power outage in the after hours, hold still. If an arcade turns on by itself during said outage, go straight to it and play the game until the power comes back on. Make sure that when you play the game under that circumstance, to make no mistakes whatsoever. Normally, we're not supposed to play on the job, but if the circumstances for this rule happen, that is where we have an exception. As we switch jobs weekly, I sometimes have janitorial duties in the after hours. 2 weeks into the job, I have janitorial duties in the after hours, and the power goes out, including the obligatory lights that stay on when the lights are off. I stood completely still thinking the power outage would be temporary. But the arcade came on. Turned on by itself with a startup screen and the number of credits needed to play already in. This was a standard game of the one with that hamster wheel children love so much, where you have to roll the thing through the course without falling. I walked right up to it, gliding ghost-like, right to the childish game. And when I played it, it was as if the difficulty was set to expert mode. It was hard to not let the wheel fall off. I kept on playing, just to keep it from falling. The hamster wheel was at its first goal in 4 hours, when the power came back on. Relieved, I went to the manager to tell him what happened. "I saw you playing on the job. Rule number 4, rule number 9, or were you slacking off?" "Rule number 4, boss." "Good. If that should happen again, then do that playing. No harm was done that night. And remember, Danforth, if rule number 4 should happen, making any mistake will do to you what that monster did to Gabriel and Natalie." As I remember from reading a retired employee's account, as we are required to do to avoid making mistakes, he recounted that the 2 kids appeared to go catatonic and their skin went paler after they reached the game over screen on the mysterious arcade rule number 1 was made for. Rule number 5. If the arcade screen shows the exact same image, notify the manager immediately. I have janitorial duties, but sometimes I work the prize counter and sometimes I also watch over the laser tag to make sure it works properly and I don't have to do rule number 2. I had been working for 3 months when all the arcade games suddenly blinked on in the after hours, when all the games were supposed to be turned off. They all showed the exact same image. The image was that of a mix of a biker chick and a Disney princess of some form. I remember getting the last of the mess I had to clean up from the mini restaurant fast and running straight to the manager. "Rule number 5. Okay, Danforth, stay here. I'll take care of this." Then the manager rushed to the arcade game with the biggest screen, which was on the corner of the arcade. He stood straight-faced in front of the screen, and he asked whatever that girl was on the screen, "All right, what do you want this time?" The girl in the image on all the screens spoke to him, as if there were multiple girls speaking at once. "You know what I want." "Cut the bullshit, lady. Tell me what it is you want." "You made rules against it, remember? You know the games are hungry. Not after Gabriel and Natalie. Rules were meant to be broken. You know what I want, Lester. Like I'll ever believe that bullshit saying." It seemed as if the arcades were possessed by some strange monster. I felt as if we were dealing with some sort of demon. I remember watching this all helplessly, like I had no way to deal with this. You think you could make a rule against the creature I am, and I need more. More what? You know what I want. No fucking way am I ever gonna let another child die. Don't you remember? I want someone to play no heart, no soul. Hell no. Please. Why don't you let this cute little man play it, too? Not a chance. You will pay for this. Rule number 1 is there for a reason. There was silence for a few moments. Then she said, "You've given me what I want. All I really wanted was for you to remember the fear you had when I took those souls." After a moment, I heard the manager say, "You bitch." Then the arcade screens turned off. No other incident happened that day. I remember being vividly scared. Rule number 6. Should any patron hear a strange growling from any arcade, let them know you'll take care of it. Get a kit from underneath the manager's desk and place it behind the arcade from where it's coming from. This incident I'll tell you about happened nearly 5 months into the job. It happens about 5 or 6 times a month. Some kid was complaining about hearing a low growl from the Frogger arcade. There's kits for each arcade underneath the manager's desk, supposedly containing different foods for different monsters inside each arcade. They said they heard the growling after they completed about 5 levels, and it distracted them so much they ended up failing into a game over. Don't worry, kid. I'll take care of the problem. I rushed to the manager's office and asked if I could get something from beneath his desk. Rule 6, Stanforth? Yes, Rule 6. Which arcade? Frogger. Just a moment. I waited for about half an hour outside the manager's office. I was bored, so I was about to leave when he came out with a necessary kit. Here, remember to put it directly beneath the arcade. I rushed over to the Frogger arcade and quickly put the kit behind the arcade. Almost immediately, I thought I saw tentacles just take the kit nearly immediately. I'll admit that this made me jump so much that one of the kids asked me if I was okay. I'm good. Thanks for your concern, though. Well, if you say it all strained like that, Mr. Crab, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Too late. I already pictured you as a sweat-scented candle. I wasn't surprised they said that, because they were a teen. But I'm glad they made me smile after this. Rule number 7. If a strange woman's face suddenly shows up at the game where you throw balls at bottles, close it off until the face is gone. I had the drive to follow this rule after I saw what happened when a patron actually played it when the face showed up. The face looked a lot like that of Olivia Newton-John when she was in Greece. My getting distracted was what caused the effect of what happens if you break this rule. I saw this adult male start playing the game, and he threw 2 balls without incident. The face showed up right after he threw the 3rd ball to topple over the 3rd set of plastic bottles. The ball hit the face, and I could not believe what happened. The face showed a lot of anger. It stuck its tongue out, then opened wide. The man could hardly believe his eyes. He looked scared. Luckily, no one else was near the game. But then the face went right off the game and appeared to eat the man whole. I couldn't believe it. I noted the identity of the patron, closed off the game. We do so by adding a sign and some yellow tape saying it's being repaired, and ran to the manager immediately. I told him everything. Danforth, that face tends to show itself when you least expect it. It's very rare that the face show up right as the game is being played. You're supposed to tell him to wait between throws in case the face showed up. I did, and he complied. Okay? The face showed up right as he threw the ball, meaning either the timing was bad or that thing got smarter. I'll look into the incident. For now, close the game off for the rest of the day. And that I did. The face usually goes away after an hour being closed. but it will take longer if it gets to someone. Could be why he wanted me to close off the game for the rest of the day. Rule number 8. If a brunette shows up wearing a black dress, wears a facial tattoo of a spider web, and walks as though she's floating, notify the manager immediately. Around a full 6 months into the job, I was making my rounds after hours, making sure to keep following the rules. Patrons were just leaving when I saw a brunette walking in. It took me a while to notice her face. Yes, she wore a black dress. She did walk like she was floating. She was super tall, as though she was over 8 feet tall. I was about to dismiss her when I noticed a patron coming for a prize when I noticed the unmistakable tattoo of a spider web right around her right eye. After 6 months of noticing what happens if I break the rules, how could I not rush to the manager's office on instinct? Rule 8, boss. Bring her to me, Danforth. It'll take a while, so wait outside when she's here. I had a feeling he might have met her before. I looked all over for this girl. I'll admit she was beautiful, though the manager wants me to have her in his office. When I found her near the packing machine, she looked at me as if she was scared to death. I told her she'd be okay, and brought her to the manager's office. She immediately went inside and I waited outside, just as he asked. It did take a while. Boredom was setting in and the arcade screen was turning on and off, just getting annoying. The brunette walked out, seemingly calm, and she left the arcade. The manager's eyes appeared bloodshot. I asked him what was going on. I can't tell you, but were the arcade screens acting strange? They were turning on and off over and over. He paused for a moment. They looked at the arcade screens, were still doing it. Do you approve? Yes, boss? It's time. We have to break rule number 9. Rule number 9. Do not play the nameless arcade game that randomly shows up in every corner of the arcade. This arcade has no name at all. Almost every day, the game randomly shows up on another corner. The arcade screens have different ways of acting if the brunette shows up, he told me. If they were showing weird images and cycling, that means there was nothing wrong. If they were showing the image of that girl while the brunette was there, you had to let her talk to the brunette. But if they were flashing like that, like what happened the day before, then we'd have to do what we did that day. This time, the nameless arcade showed up close to the entrance. As I was almost out of muscle memory for me to try to pull the out of order sign on it, but the manager just waved me off. I need to do this, to keep this business going and to protect everyone. I was looking over his shoulder as to what the game was all about. His own name, which I never knew until then, was Lester Harrison. It showed up at the top left corner, just like how the name that each kid had when they played No Heart, No Soul. I heard that this nameless arcade, the Avatar, was consistent like the one in Rule Number 1 is about. In it, my avatar looked like a rich male with a disfigured face. My boss got to the man to the right of the arcade game. The man talked to what appeared to be a zombified blend of a biker punk girl with a disguise that of the two FBI characters in White Chick's Dawn. He seemed to just talk in an unintelligible language. A mix of Spanish and Irish, I think. Then the screen changed to black while the text said, "Please choose a new manager." And the manager said, "I already did. He is my best employee. I think he's fit for the job." Then the text changed to say, "Danforth Crab, indeed he is eligible." Then it changed into a game like the ones described in Rule Number 1 that was added after the .exe ones, after the deaths of those two kids. In this case, it was the avatar in a burning version of the Green Hill Zone in Sonic the Hedgehog. Then the manager went catatonic, his skin paler. I decided to move his body off it. Then the text said, "Now that you've taken the managerial duties in his place, please move the character to the goal. He would have wanted you to manage the arcade and protect everyone." Then I did as it asked. It noticed that the name of the corner changed to mine. So I played it to bring the avatar to the goal. I was scared still, even when I managed to get it playing. Scared because the manager died right then and there, before the game had me play. I was mentally scarred by the experiences of following and seeing the effects of breaking each rule, but I had to do it. It took a while, but when I finally got him to the goal, I was relieved. Then it switched to a text that said, "You have passed the test. I assure you that you will do what you can and save us all. Remember to read the manual on the desk so you can fulfill your job. Goodbye." Then the arcade turned off by itself. I went to Lester Harrison's office, now mine, and looked into the manual. I was scared because I had never taken such a job before, and after witnessing his death, have it been like what happened to Gabriel and Natalie still scarred me. The manual was leather-bound, had the rules, the reasons why, and the instructions on how employees must be trained. On the last page it said, Rule number 10, the establishment must always have a manager and owner.